Moving on, ladies and gentlemen, and let's set up debate number 2 here on the right stand. Have a look at this. Where are, and did you know, let me look at and have a look at this information. In Jammu and Kashmir in our country, 28.4%, only 28.4% are Hindus. In Punjab, 38.4% are Hindus. Arunachal Pradesh, 29% are Hindus. Nagaland, 8.7% are Hindus. Mizoram, 2.7% are Hindus. Meghalaya, 11.53% are Hindus. Manipur, 31.3% are Hindus. Lakshadweep, 2.5% are Hindus. This is as per a petition in the Honorable Supreme Court that is quoting this data, which shows that clearly in about 6 states and 3 union territories in our country, Hindus are a minority in Hindustan. So should they not get the rights as minority in these states? Time to recognize Hindu minority is the question that we ask. The Hindu minority debate, Hindu minority status. Use these hashtags, tag us at CNN News18 or at Anchor Anandan, that's my handle. Coo about it, tweet about it, tell us what you think. RP Singh of the BJP with us, Atikur Rahman, Islamic scholar with us, Shireen Moti, Professor of Constitutional Law, OP Jindal Global University and also lawyer with us. My namaste to everybody. Shireen, this petition in the Honorable Supreme Court, is it going to push a rethink on who is a minority and who is not? How do you classify it? Or should it be the responsibility of the various state governments, linguistically and also religiously?
Well, the Constitution provides for benefits for religious and linguistic minorities and protection for them.
But does it define minorities? Does our Constitution define minorities?
No, it does not define minorities, and therefore the petition and therefore the demand of clearly defining the minorities and therefore extending the benefits that are there for the minorities in a more reasonable and in a more clear fashion, as opposed to the allegation today that it is arbitrary in nature and it is something that needs to be relooked at. Now, the question really here is twofold. Firstly, who is a minority? That becomes important for giving those benefits, extending those benefits that have been reserved for the minorities within the constitutional scheme. And second, who is the authority that is going to define the minority status? And these questions have been pending for years together, and that is leading to a little bit of a discomfort, and that is causing this petition to be there in the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court will be finally interpreting the Constitution. Article 29 and 30 are protecting your minority rights and not only restricted to educational institutions but otherwise as well. And therefore it is up to the Supreme Court now to face these two questions that have been long pending and have been a matter
but the centre has come out and washed its hands off, saying don't ask us, let it be with the states, because that's what previous judgments have said. They've quoted the 2005 Pai judgment.
Yes, so even if the states go ahead, and because under your minority commission, it was the central government who would notify this list. That was the power, that was the empowerment within the National Commission for Minorities. But now if the states have been given this onus, the centre is saying that the states should go ahead and define who are the minorities and therefore extend the benefits that are rightly to be extended to them. Ultimately, the Supreme Court has to take a call on this, that who defines, but your outcome has to be that there has to be a clear definition and therefore the guidelines also to support the benefits that the minorities rightly deserve.
Why have you passed it on to the states, Sardar RP Singh?
Well, Anand, as per the law, it's the domain of the states. I mean, earlier also, 2016, Maharashtra government has done it for Jews, and Karnataka government has done it for the linguistic minority of Urdu, Telugu, Tamil, Malayalam, Marathi, and other languages. So, it's the state government which will take a call, and then let state government, as you were telling the data, which was around Meghalaya 11.53 and other states where Hindus are minorities, Nagaland 8.75. So, let the state government take a call. But yes, I'll appreciate Supreme Court should dwell into who is minority, what percentage will be minority, whether 20% or 2%. I mean, what level of, what will be the threshold of population or linguistic minority? If it's by head count, then court should help us to define this, because it's time to define who is minority also.
True, but Atikur Rahman, whose minority? And is it fair that in a Jammu and Kashmir all this while, the minority, which is the majority, continued to take the minority benefits, claiming that across India they were a minority despite having a separate constitution.
So, Anand, today our stands vindicated that minorities have the first right over the state resources. Who are the minorities? The center has excelled in their effort to either push the buck either towards the Supreme Court, the judiciary, and now to the states. They are unable to define minorities. So far they were saying that the Muslims are not the minorities in India, but the second largest majority. Would R.P. Singh Saab again say that in Jammu and Kashmir, the Hindus are not in minority, but the second largest majority? So our stand is very much vindicated today, and the center is exposed, the BJP is exposed, because minority politics charge on the Muslims was a very much plaything for them. They were accusing the minorities, the Muslims, the earlier governments of playing the minority politics. Who is playing the minority politics?
Sir, is desh
today?
mein Sardar R.P. Singh and the Sikhs are a minority. In this country, in Meghalaya and in Mizoram, 2% Hindus are a minority. In this country, Parsis are a minority. In this country, with 27 to 30 crore Muslims are not a minority, they are the second largest majority. And you skip my question, Atikur Rahman, that for nearly 70 odd years, 72 years, Muslims in Jammu and Kashmir said that nationally we are a minority. We may be a majority in Kashmir, but nationally we are a minority, so we will only reap the minority benefits. That's the game they played. You know what they are saying in Kerala? In Kerala, they are saying that we are a minority in Kerala, but we are the majority in the minority, so we should get majority of the minority benefits. This is how devious the plan and the game that is afoot of minority politics. R.P. Singh respond.
Anand.
Let R.P. Singh respond to you.
Did you hear Atikur Rahman, you rightly said, I mean, and you came out with that truth, you came out what was in your mind. And that is that the first right on the resources. That's the problem is, when we say the right on the resources is for everyone equal. It's not that a particular minority should get the right on resources. Sabka saath, sabka vikas is the notion. It's not only the notion. It should be how the government should function, how the administration should function.
Sir, this
We have to
falls
come
on
out
the
of this
ground.
mindset
Sardar
of,
Sahab, this falls on the ground. This
it's happening
claim
on the
of
ground,
yours
sir.
Falls on the ground in the wake of you demanding now.
Where
that
is
the
it?
No, how
Hindus
does it
should
fall?
get
How does it fall on the
When we
ground?
get
How does it
group
fall on the
right,
ground,
when we get
Atikur
group
Rahman?
two-
You then say that Muslims across the country don't want minority rights. They don't want minority reservation. Give up. We give up. All Muslims in the country should give it up. Then you turn around and ask the BJP and say, how can Hindus demand minority? So when Hindus want to demand minority rights when they are in minority, you have a problem. But Muslims should be considered minority no matter what. No, this is again biased politics.
Anand. Anand, I'll just take 20 to 30 seconds, please. Anand, since I do not belong to the political class in India for 70 years has just played politics on the reservations and on the issue of minorities. As far as reservations are concerned, they are crutches for me. No minority, no majority, only the economically and socially backwards should get the benefit of all the resources. As far as the resources are concerned, Anand, resources in India are not explored to the benefit of the people of India. And who hasn't explored this? The political class. Because they use these minorities as vote banks and
here's
nothing
Atikur Rahman.
else.
Here,
Reservations
Atikur
for me
Rahman,
are
I agree with you.
and nothing
I
else.
totally agree with you, and I welcome. And if anybody from the Honorable Supreme Court is watching this, we would request the Supreme Court to say and direct that do away with the word minorities. Do away with this entire concept of minorities and only practice the politics of haves and have-nots, and practice the politics of giving everyone equal access to resources and bringing the have-nots equal to the haves and to ensure that the haves start providing for the have-nots. Now, Shireen Moti, this is not going to happen because this argument is coming 75 years later. After 75 years of playing the minority card, when suddenly it is turning back at you, then they'll say, oh, let's play haves and have-nots and we do not have. That's the game that will be played.
See, we have to create a distinction between your minority rights and rights in form of the affirmative action that is envisaged by the constitution makers and have been included in our constitution. The objective of affirmative action and minority rights is different, and therefore we shouldn't mix the two concepts together. Another thing is that we cannot do away with the majority minority debate because the social fabric of our country is such, and the founding fathers were also aware of this aspect, that India is so diverse. We have religious, linguistic minorities, we have so many cultures, we have so many languages, that you need to provide for this protective status within the constitution. And when I refer to the founding fathers, I'm essentially referring to the Constituent Assembly, which drafted the Indian Constitution. And today also our social fabric has not changed to the extent that we can do away with the ideals on which our constitution was really based. So doing away with the majority and minority seems like a very far-fetched debate and possibility. What we could really do is to bring some kind of a standardization, some kind of rules, regulations, some kind of sort of direction when it comes to defining the minorities, and then giving those benefits in a way that they reach the most needy in terms of the people who need them the most, not in the economic sense, but within the minorities also. Who are these people who need the resources the most? It's essentially about redistribution of resources in a way that we can restore some kind of equality in our society.
No, but here is the problem. Now, here is the problem.
These
Explain
are
to
not
me.
jargons.
Let me just understand. Let me just understand. First up.
I differ on a point.
Yes, RP Singh.
I differ on a point. Article 27 categorically says that you can't collect the state revenue on basis of religion, neither you can spend it on basis of religion. So let's be very clear. This definition of minority and then giving special status to minority and using resources of the state for minorities on name of religion or on name of language is against the law, against the constitution. So yes, when we say everything will be provided to everyone, that's okay, because when we say the roof will be provided to everyone, the ration will be provided to everyone, the gas collection will be provided to everyone, the water collection will be provided to everyone, without getting into minority or majority. And yes, it's a time when minority also has to be defined. What would be minority? What percentage would be minority? Will be 20% will be minority or 2% will be minority in this country if minority has to be defined?
No, but minority will be defined on what? On what basis? On language and on religiosity? Or will minority be defined on some other parameters? And at what basis? At a national level or at a state level? Now here is a contradiction. Just quickly see, and then I'll come back to you. Now here is the contradiction. First up, our constitution doesn't clearly define who a minority is. But what happens is Section 2F of the NCMEI Act 2004 comes into focus because it restricts minority benefits restricted to 6 religious communities. Fundamental rights of Hindus violated. This is what the petitioner is coming out and saying. What is the petitioner asking for? Guidelines for identification of minorities at a state level. Enable minority rights to all non-dominant religions. This is the petitioner's plea in the Supreme Court. My point, Sardar RP Singh, is the government's affidavit also turns around and says, do it at the state level. We do not want to be involved at the center. So then, are you going to now turn around and say that there should be no definition of minorities, or every state can define minorities as per its whims and fancy? Because then you are not giving uniform rights. Now, Nagaland, a Hindu in Nagaland is not getting minority rights. A Hindu in Punjab is not getting minority rights.
So this issue needs to be debated at all levels, in parliament, in courts, every level, in civil society also. Who is minority? What is is it religious minority? Is it linguistic minority? Is it economic minority? People are economically deprived, they are minorities. So this needs to be opened up and the debate needs to happen. But till that time, states can define their
No, but what about
who is
states that
minority in
refuse to
their state.
define? Shireen Moti,
And-
what about states that refuse to define? So in Nagaland, a Hindu group, which is a minority, cannot open an educational institution that gives instruction in Hinduism, in Sanatan Pratha. They can't do that in Manipur either. Can they do it in Arunachal Pradesh? Can they do it in Kashmir? Can they do it in Ladakh? The state doesn't provide for them. The Union Territory doesn't provide for them. Can they do it in Lakshadweep? They are only 3% in Lakshadweep.
So these are not matters that have to be taken so lightly, and the guidelines have to come out for directions to the states to even go forward and define minorities. So as one of the panelists said, that these matters have to be debated, and these debates are long due in the parliament and in the courts as well. And to what end? To give the benefits to those people who rightly deserve it. Now, if the onus is falling on the state, then the states also have to be directed in a particular manner. And this probably the Supreme Court can come up with those guidelines, those uniform guidelines on the basis of which those determinations can be made and those benefits can be extended. It cannot be a matter of a day or two, and all of this has to be based on some theoretical as well as empirical data. We cannot go ahead and grant the status and also grant the benefits and based on the whims and fancies, because it will lead to the same problem that we are trying to solve. Today, the allegation is that things are being run in an arbitrary manner. If you look at the allegation.
Yes.
So we have to remove this arbitrariness from the minority status, and the only way to do it is by A, fixing who a minority is, at least having a broad guideline, and B, having an authority. Here we are giving
Right.
the onus to the states in terms of them to exercise those guidelines, and
Anand,
then to
allow
have a
me, please.
mechanism if there is an error on their part.
Right. Final word, Atikur Rahman.
Anand, may I come in? Yeah, Anand, Sardar Saab is trying to play hide and seek. He is unable to reply why they are passing the buck to the states. One. Secondly, there is in the Sacher committee a provision for Equal Opportunities Commission, which can solve all the problems in India as far as economic and social and educational backwardness of the people are concerned. But the government wants to play politics.
No, sir.
They
No,
want
sir.
to
No,
play
sir.
hide and
If you
seek.
talk about
They
equal
want to pass the
opportunity,
buck to the
then I'll tell you
judiciary in
what.
the states.
Then what happens to individual community religious instruction and educational institution? So a Muslim group can say that I want to open madrasas. Jain can open their own schools. Christians can open their own schools, but Hindus can't. In places where there are minority, because they are denied this right. So where is the definition? The Supreme Court has to ensure that every state, if it's the state that decides on what contours, what is the percentage cutoff, and that every state must have a minority definition. Every state must give rights to minorities. It can't be that some states do and some states don't, because then again it is not that, it is injustice and it is inequality. We'll take this discussion forward. I've got to wind up for the moment. Atikur Rahman, Sardar RP Singh and Shireen Moti, thank you very, very much. That's all we have time for in this edition of The Right Stand. Brass Tacks with Zaka right now. Stay with us.